The Clemson Tigers are favored to repeat as ACC champions, but they'll have the likes of Miami, SMU, Louisville, and 13 others gunning for the conference title. Let's assemble the squad.
You're talking ball with the ACC squad, sponsored by Game Time. From Florida State to North Carolina, from Syracuse to Miami, and from NC State to California, it's the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network, bringing you scoops, breakdowns, and the most comprehensive preview of the upcoming ACC weekend. Hang on, it could get loud, it could get heated, and it will definitely be fun. Squad up, you're part of the ACC squad.
It's officially week 0 in college football, and it's time to preview the Atlantic Coast Conference here on the squad. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create your account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. On this season preview episode, we'll talk about ACC coaches on the hot seat, who's not going to make it through the season. We'll talk about the FanDuel over-unders, the win totals, and we will make the case for why all of the teams we cover can win the conference this coming season. I am Alex Dono from Locked On Canes. We got Isaac Shade from Locked On Tar Heels. We got Brian Smith from Locked On Seminoles, JJ Jackson from Locked On Blue Devils, Grayson Boone from Locked On Wolfpack, and AJ Black from Locked On Boston College. Thank you so much to the everydayers for making us your first listen. All right, so friends, we'll make our official picks for who's actually going to win the darn thing, but I want us all to make our case. And AJ Black, I will start with you. Boston College, who has named their starting quarterback for the upcoming season. If BC can pull off big upset and win the ACC this year, how can that happen for them?
God, you got to go to me first. I mean,
is God your answer to how they?
God is my answer. As a Roman Catholic college, it's got to be God. Look, I feel good about this team. I'm not there to say that they have a chance at the ACC championship. They've got. We'll talk about the over-unders in a little bit, but they're going to have to beat some tough teams. If they can beat these tough teams, if they can beat Clemson, they can beat Notre Dame, SMU, Louisville, Georgia Tech. Yeah, all the power to them. They're going to do it. It's going to have to be on the back of good coaching, right? Like, this is all about, can Bill O'Brien get that group to the level that he wants to get them to in year 2? He's got his new quarterback, Dylan Larnagin. Watched him a lot at camp so far. He is definitely a cerebral quarterback. He has good vision down the field, unlike a certain quarterback that's in Tallahassee right now. And hey, the intro said I could say stuff like that, right? But I think like he's the right quarterback to get them to the next level. I don't know. It's only his first year though, so he's going to have growing pains. I think that's going to be tough. Their secondary. The secondary is going to be probably the strength of BC. They've got a really good pair of quarterbacks, actually 3 or 4 good cornerbacks, and probably one of the best pairs of safeties that people don't know about, KP Price and Omar Thornton next year. I think that could be a real shot in the arm. And, if they can shut down good passing defenses with that good secondary, maybe that gives them a good chance to win some games that they're not supposed to. But obviously it's going to be an uphill battle for them to get that far. But I think that would be something they would have to do.
All right, well, since you threw a little shade at old Tommy Castellanos, didn't mention him by name, but I see what you did there. Let's go to Locked On Seminoles next. Brian Smith, how can Florida State win the ACC this year?
Well, I don't think they need God's intervention, unlike Boston College, but they still would need quite a bit of help, in my opinion, because offensive line is just very thin as far as depth. They've got concerns at receiver with depth, and I'm still not convinced their defensive culture is where it needs to be based on a recent player that got jettisoned and what little I've heard. So all that would have to work itself out. And then Thomas Castellanos, the player that you are referencing, would have to be more accurate than I think. But their ACC slate is not incredibly difficult. They do play at Clemson. I do not like their odds there. But there's no other game in the ACC where I'm like, they should definitely lose. Miami's better than Florida State, but at least it's not there. And there's nobody else that I'm like deathly afraid of. Like they always play bad in Raleigh, but like I'll ask Grayson about this in a little bit. Like, who's playing linebacker for them? Is it him or is it going to be somebody else? Because like they need help there in a lot of other places. So, I mean, if they finished with 2 losses in the ACC or something like that, it wouldn't shock me. But I still don't. I think Clemson will beat them pretty handily. So, barring an injury or something key to Cade Klubnik. I don't think they're beating Clemson, and I think that's going to be their undoing, but they'll be a lot better this year.
Well, one of the most fascinating teams to observe during this offseason have been the North Carolina Tar Heels. So got to go to Isaac Shade next. And the Tar Heels are getting a little respect when it comes to the win total, the over-under. We'll get to that. And they've got the NFL GOAT, Bill Belichick, trying his hand at the college game now in Chapel Hill. Isaac, how can the Tar Heels win the ACC this year?
For Carolina, I think for me, it's about the schedule, right? Like I've been saying all off season, they could win 3 games total or 10 games total or anything in between, and none of it would shock me because we all know how Bill Belichick rolls. He ain't going to give you any more than he has to give you about scheme or personnel or anything, right? And so we're all sitting here wondering, and honestly, fellas, your guess is as good as mine, even though I cover this team every day. But when you look at the schedule, at least like let's look at preseason rankings from the media vote. Carolina plays Clemson at home to start the ACC play. But Miami, preseason number 2, don't play them. SMU, 3rd, don't play them. Georgia Tech, 4th, don't play them. Louisville, 5th, don't play them. Florida State, 7th, don't play them. So Carolina doesn't play 5 of the preseason top 7 teams in the ACC, but then they do play like the whole bottom. Stanford picked last, play them. Wake, 16th. Cal, 15th. Virginia, 14th. Syracuse, 12th. Carolina plays 4 of the bottom 5 teams, at least in terms of the preseason poll. And so from that standpoint, it's like, I mean, obviously we got to play the games and who knows, but that seems to at least be in Carolina's favor for this year. So I think it's the schedule makers that we can thank if we look back and Carolina is your ACC champion.
Yeah, another team that's a little bit of an enigma, Carolina's top rival, NC State, go down to Grayson Boone for that one. Grayson, what has to happen for for the Wolfpack, who's got a coach who may or may not be on the hot seat? We'll get to that. What has to happen for the Wolfpack to win the conference?
This is like the imperfect encapsulation of what it means to have Dave Dorn as your head coach. We have no idea what to expect this season in 2025. Our win total's at 6.5. We'll get to that later. It's hard to argue that that's not accurate. And the saying around NC State is that when there's little to no expectations, that's typically when they exceed on like a higher level than normal. So we'll see how that goes. But if NC State's going to take the rest of the ACC by surprise and win it, they're going to have to get every bad break they had last year reversed. Every fumble, every pick, every injury, everything's going to have to go the opposite direction to have a shot. Now, I'm not saying this team stinks. There's some optimism around the offense. There's some optimism around the defense, despite a decent amount of question marks. But there's a lot of young, raw talent. We just don't quite know how it's all going to fit together once we kick this thing off. So do they have the raw talent to potentially compete and shock everyone? I think so. But there's just so many questions. I don't know if they can get it done this year.
J.J. Jackson, the Duke Blue Devils were one of the pleasant surprises in the conference last year with 9 wins, first season for Manny Diaz as head coach. And I feel like Duke hit a home run in the transfer portal with their new quarterback in Darian Mensah. Make the case for the Blue Devils, J.J.
Well, I think it certainly starts there, Dono. I mean, when you think about college football and the arms race that is finding your quarterback in the transfer portal, Duke ponied up. They put the big money on the table, and Darian Mensah makes his way over from Tulane as one of the most sought-after quarterbacks. When you win championships, I always think about quarterback play first and foremost. And if Mensah steps up to his billing and plays as well as the Duke coaching staff wants them to be, I'm making the same kind of schedule argument as many of these other guys are. Outside of Clemson, there are several games on the schedule for Duke that feel very winnable for them. They go in Duke's favor. And so that's why I feel like it is kind of reasonable to be optimistic about Duke's chances for once going into a football season.
Yeah, I co-sign on that. And I cover the Miami Hurricanes. And from the Miami point of view, I believe they have enough talent to challenge Clemson for an ACC championship. First thing for me, though, they have to show communication and cohesion on the defensive side of the football. They completely revamped the personnel on defense, adding such big-time additions like Xavier Lucas, the cornerback from Wisconsin, Jacoby Thomas, a safety from Tennessee, who was probably going to be a starter with the Volunteers. He'll probably be a starter at Miami. Mohamed Toure from Rutgers in the linebacker unit. They've got a new defensive coordinator in Corey Heatherman, an almost completely new defensive coaching staff. I believe they have the tools to make their defense dramatically improve from what it was last year. It's about finding the communication and really executing it consistently. Of course, we all mentioned quarterbacks. The performance of Carson Beck is going to be key for the Hurricanes. The good news is he's healthy. He seems to be gelling well with his teammates so far. I have a few concerns right now about the place kicking game, because I'm hearing about some inconsistencies with Texas transfer Burt Auburn and FAU transfer Carter Davis, who are kind of competing to be the field goal kicker, because Miami was very spoiled. They had Jose Borregales and then his brother Andy Borregales for the past 5 years making kicks from all over the place. And of course, people always have questions about Miami's coaching and kind of executing in those big moments. Mario Cristobal has to show he can do that a little bit more consistently. I believe he's got the deepest roster that he's had now heading into his 4th year at Miami. So it's really about putting that all together. We also, my friends, have the case made. He couldn't be with us here in person, but he did send us a little something. Grayson Singleton, who I might add is doing an outstanding job hosting Locked On SMU, which is one of the newest shows here on the network. Grayson Singleton makes the case for the Mustangs.
SMU is looking to get back to the ACC championship game and hopefully win it in 2025 after falling just short in 2024 to Clemson. So can they be better than Clemson? Well, here's something for you. Kevin Jennings was electric coming off the bench to take over for Preston Stone as the starter last year. I think an offseason where he is the unquestioned QB1 is going to allow him to iron out some of the deficiencies in his game while also improving in his leadership and command of the SMU offense. He's already got the physical tools. It's the cognitive that needs to improve, and I think it will. Defensively, SMU was one of the best in the ACC last year. I think they can approximate it this year. Isaiah Smith and his 7.5 sacks is coming back. But the key here is Isaiah Wacobia and Ahmad Moses. They were two of the best safeties in the entire country last year, combining for 7 takeaways. I think they do similar things in 2025. That's how SMU gets back to the title game and potentially dethrones Clemson as ACC champions.
We've made our cases. We'll make our conference picks when we come back. Who's going to win the thing? Who are the top contenders? We'll take a look at the FanDuel win totals as well. You want to keep it locked right here? We're only getting started on this season preview on the ACC squad. Folks, you probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiette Ready. Rugiette Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiette's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours. You can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. You can even read real customer reviews on their site. It's helping a lot of people feel more confident and present in the moment. I love that it's completely online. Rugiette connects you with a board-certified doctor and ships your treatment discreetly to your door. Head to rugiette.com/lockedoncollege and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/lockedoncollege and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved. Do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiette website for full safety information. My friends, we're also proudly brought to you by Open Phone. If you're running a business, every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you needed a service. If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. You moved on. That's why you need Open Phone, so you never miss an opportunity to connect with your customers. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications. Do you juggle 2 phones just to keep business and personal calls separate? Yeah, Open Phone solved that instantly. Your whole team can share one number and respond to customers in a shared inbox. No more who's handling this. And an AI agent handles after-hours calls, answering common questions and captures leads, so you never have to miss a customer again. See why over 60,000 businesses trust Open Phone. They're offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedoncollege. That's OPENPHONE.com/lockedoncollege. They'll even port over your existing numbers for free. Open phone. No missed calls. No missed customers. Thank you so much for making our ACC season preview on the squad your first listen and your first watch. Make sure you check out all of our other shows. I cover Miami on Locked On Canes. Isaac covers the Tar Heels. Brian Smith, Locked On Seminoles. JJ Jackson, Locked On Blue Devils. Grayson Boone, Locked On Wolfpack. AJ Black, Locked On Boston College. I feel like this might be the shortest segment ever. If I ask you guys, who's winning the ACC? We can go down the room. Anybody not picking Clemson?
Here's what's funny to me, Dono. In segment 1, every one of us said some version of, well, they got ACC or got Clemson at home, so I don't know about that one. Or we got Clemson on the road, so that's a loss. That alone should tell you everything you need to know about this whole sextet and how we feel about Clemson's chances. Yeah, that means 6. Come on, Grayson Boone, get off of it. That tells you how we all feel about where Clemson stands. I think we can all say it, but I just thought that was hilarious in segment 1.
Yeah, no. So is it a clean sweep? And listen, as much as I would like to bring up, Miami or SMU or something, I voted for Clemson at the ACC Media Days, so I'm gonna stay consistent on it.
Come on, Dono, I'm disappointed in you. You should have picked the U. Come on.
Listen again. Here's the thing. And some of us have said this about our teams. I'm not the only one. I think Miami has an incredibly high ceiling, but as we've seen, sometimes the floor can be lower than you think, right? So, whereas Dabo Swinney, he's been so consistent. And you talk about consistency, Clemson not only returns the highest percentage of their production in the entire conference, in the entire country, with 80% of their production back from last year. So,
Donald, that's a great question. Like, do we feel like Clemson has the highest floor in the conference? Are they the safest bet? Is it just about the ceiling, or is it about the floor as well?
That's actually, I'll answer first, folks. I think it's more about the floor than the ceiling, because again, like, how much higher has their ceiling gotten when, for example, they went 0-3 against the SEC last year? Like, I mean, I think that because of continuity, I think they can be a little bit better than they were a year ago, but I'm not sure if I'm taking them seriously as an actual, national champion favorite. I know they're not far from that according to the odds, but I think that's a hell of a question you bring up, Isaac, because for me, I think Clemson's floor is almost as high as their ceiling, and that's why we consider them conference champs to be. Anyone else have a thought?
Yeah, just in terms of winning the ACC, I don't care if it's the ceiling or the floor. It feels that safe for Clemson to kind of be the direction that you go in.
I can't argue with that.
Well, then let me
something
ask
else
this.
I'll mention too.
Go ahead.
Just real fast. I think their schedule sets up really nice for them too. And this is no disrespect to anyone else in the ACC, but I think Clemson has effectively like 2 difficult games this year, and it's 2 SEC opponents. It's LSU in week 1, and it's South Carolina for effectively week 12. They do have to play SMU, but it's at home at Clemson. I think, on the road at Louisville will be tough, but they're looking for revenge after how they got embarrassed last year in Death Valley. I think Clemson's going to be hungry. They're going to be focused, and they sort of feel like inevitable at this point to me.
All right, so I think the more difficult question would be, and AJ, you can start, who are they going to face in the ACC championship then? Who's the other team that's going to get to Charlotte?
Ooh. I'm going to go Louisville. I'm going to go a little bit off the beaten path here. I think I have a lot of faith that Miller Moss is going to, Jeff Brom is definitely like the quarterback whisperer, and he's going to pull something out of him that's going to make them really dangerous this year. And they got Isaac Brown back. I really like I just like what Louisville has done with their team over the last couple of years. I feel like they're going to have an even better season this year. I think they're going to be the surprise team in the ACC this year.
What about you, Brian?
I'll just piggyback on that. I also have Louisville. I also have Louisville playing Clemson in the title game. Piggybacking off of what AJ was saying there, I think Miller Moss will be a really good fit for Louisville. I think they do have the best running back tandem in the ACC. Maybe some questions on the defensive side of the ball, but this is a Louisville team that should have easily been 10-2 last year, if not a stumble against Stanford. I think they're priming for another really good season. I think they're kind of not being talked about at all. I feel like Louisville's never really talked about all that much.
And they beat Clemson last year?
Exactly. I think they can rematch Clemson in Charlotte for the ACC title.
What's interesting about Louisville's schedule is, Dono, I know they're at you guys on October 17th, but outside of that, the whole front portion of their ACC schedule is very, very doable. But then prior to their matchup with Kentucky to wrap the regular season, hosting Clemson and at SMU. If their only loss is to Miami heading into that, man, those two games are going to tell us a lot. And what's interesting to me about, I think there's others that might pick SMU, and I'll throw my hat into the Louisville versus Clemson in the championship game ring as well. I think SMU probably snuck up and caught a lot of people last year as one of the three newcomers to our conference. That ain't happening again, right? They're not sliding in and like, oh, the Mustangs, what on, like, I just don't think they're going to catch anyone by surprise again this year. And so I think that also trends in Louisville's favor.
I'm picking Louisville in a second. Like, everybody loves Louisville. I thought I was going to be the surprise.
What's going on here?
Man, you guys are boring. Hopefully JJ Jackson has something different to say, but go ahead, Brian.
I like Isaac Brown and Duke Watson as a 1-2. By the way, I've got Duke higher than about anybody, so they're my third pick. But I think the running game for Louisville, having a veteran quarterback, I know he's a transfer, and then having Braum as a play caller, they will be elite in close games because they can run the ball, and Braum finds a way to get big plays out of guys that weren't as talented as what he has now. And they got 2 home run hitters at running back. One guy averaged 7.1, the other one 8.9, and they're both back. So I think they're going to be a handful on offense.
In the most amazing scenario, it would be Clemson taking on Duke in the ACC championship game, but I can't quite go that far. I actually at ACC kickoff submitted a ballot with Clemson and Miami as the top 2 teams.
Finally, someone with some sense.
And so,
JJ.
and so, I look at what Miami's got in the skill positions, and then in the trenches, and then quarterback. It goes back to the most important position on the field, and just kind of disheartening a little bit to see people write off Carson Beck already and forget what he was able to do at a school like Georgia in the SEC week after week after week. And I do think the players that were on Miami's team last year that saw these big opportunities to make it into the playoff, to make ACC statements, that's got to sit with you and bother you every single day throughout the course of the offseason. So, yeah, I'm hyping up the U because that's the direction I would go.
Yeah, I got Miami as well getting in there, and actually a big reason for that is because I had some questions. Like I really needed to see Carson Beck, how he looks coming off the surgery, and he really has looked impressive to me in training camp. And it's not even just like the arm being recovered, because I heard a lot of narratives about him from, folks in Athens, Georgia, like, oh, this guy, he's not a team guy. He's not a leader. I don't know if it's the honeymoon effect of being in a new place, but I've had quite like the opposite observation. I think he puts in a lot of extra work between reps with his teammates and really seems to have a high football IQ, and he's doing all the good leadership stuff right now. So, Cristobal has stacked, basically 3 consecutive top 10 recruiting classes. And I think the depth is finally there where he can have enough depth to overcome some of the, the timeouts and the different decisions. So I'll go with Miami for that reason to get there against Clemson. But all right, friends, let's take a look at these FanDuel over-unders. And, JJ, I'll start with you on this one because, I had a long chat with Brian Smith over there a couple weeks ago, and he's the one who brought this to my attention, that Duke's over-under is just 6.5 after winning 9 games last year. Like if I'm going to look at anyone in this conference as being probably criminally underrated, Duke is the team I'm going to be on FanDuel making a few wagers on.
Yeah, it's been the same messaging that I've been spreading. It's that week where people are starting to look at these things. I started off the week on Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin presenting the same case. Like, how in the world did this end up that Duke's got a 6.5 in the over win total? I think it's criminally underrating what Duke was able to do a season ago with a first-year coach at the stop in Manny Diaz. The skill position guys that Duke does have coming back, taking on larger roles with the quarterback investment that they made in Darian Mensah. And then Manny Diaz, all he does is coach really great defensive football. Duke, the last few seasons, has always been towards the top of the country in tackles for loss and sacks and big-time playmaking sides of the ball. So the fact that you look at the schedule that Duke's got, and settle on 6.5. I'm not sure how that came up, but it feels pretty easy for me to go and invest my money over at FanDuel in that over department.
What if we all went in on that and all took the over on Duke, and then with our winnings, we just go have a locked on ACC team dinner sometime? How rad would that be?
I'm showing up. I'd show up.
We'll probably move the number. Like just based on this show, it's going to be 7.5 in a couple days, probably.
Trip to Vegas.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And so some of the other ones, like for teams that are not represented here, not surprisingly, the Clemson number is the highest at 10.5. In fact, like that number is so high, I'm probably not going to bet on it, or maybe I'll take the under just because like winning 11 games is hard. And Clemson didn't do that last year. This is regular season win total. They won 9 games last year. They still ended up winning the ACC. So I'm not touching over 10.5. If anything, I'd probably go under. Miami is at 9.5. Louisville and SMU are both at 8.5. For the other shows represented here, Isaac Shade's Tar Heels are over under 7.5. Brian Smith's Seminoles 7.5. AJ Black's Boston College Eagles 5.5, which seems a little low. I think there's some value in the over on that one as well. 6.5 for NC State. So AJ, I'll go over to you. What do you make of that 5.5 number for Boston College?
That sounds about what I was expecting, given that they have a tough schedule, right? They're playing 3 playoff teams from last year.
Right.
That's tough. They play Michigan State on the road. They play Louisville on the road. That's going to make things tricky. That being said, watching this team, I think they're better than people are expecting. I think with a good quarterback that can actually run Bill O'Brien's system, I think they're going to catch some teams. And I look at their September. If they can pull off if they can beat Michigan State on the road, they beat them last year. And they, Stanford, Fordham, Cal, and Pitt. I think there's a chance they beat Pitt last year pretty easily. They could do it again. I know they didn't have Eli Holstein last year, but that's going to be on the road too, but that's tough. But if they could win, there's a potential if BC plays really well, that they could be 5-0 facing Clemson. But they're going to have to play really well to do that. But, beating Stanford shouldn't be that hard. I'm glad our Syracuse host isn't here because I'll rag on Syracuse a little bit. You get Syracuse at the end of the season. I don't have any faith in them. BC chopped them up last year once they benched Tommy. And I think they could do it again. Look, last year they caught Kyle McCord in a bottle. That's where I'm at with that. But I think they could beat Syracuse and they get UConn. So I think 6 wins at least shouldn't be that hard. And I think you have the red bandana game against SMU. BC almost beat SMU on the road last year. They scored a late touchdown to make it a 10-point game for playoff rankings, but BC had the ball to win at the end of the game on the road. So I think they could beat SMU. It's going to be hard without Donovan Azaraka and a couple of their offensive line starters, but I think they're going to be better than people expect.
Real quick, you mentioned Syracuse. That's another team with a very low win total, but it's because they played the toughest schedule in the ACC. Syracuse is only 5.5 wins, which seems a little crazy after they won 10 wins with the bowl game last year, but the schedule is much tougher this year. So the orange number reflects that. What do you think, Isaac? 7.5 for the Fighting Belichicks.
It's a good question. Let's go back to Spencer McLaughlin. Spencer, my guy, called this the shortest under in all of college football. To which Grayson Boone is rubbing his hands together in glee and delight. I pushed back just because of the unknown of the Bill Belichick era, right? Like, this guy is the John Wooden of football, like teaching you how to put your socks on properly to make sure you win games, right? Like, that's his level of detail and attention. For Carolina, they got 2 bye games in non-con. Let's call that 2 of those 8 wins that you need to hit the over. If they could get one of TCU or UCF in non-con, then you need 5 in the ACC. Carolina doesn't leave the state in the month of November, hosting Stanford, at Wake, hosting Duke, at NC State. Those are not gimme game. None of them, right? Like, we know NC State has had Carolina's number lately. We've talked about how good Duke should be this year. And so there's just schedule possibilities that allow it to happen. And so I think if I was a betting man, I think the wise thing to do is take the under. But Spencer, come on, what are we talking about? The easiest under in football? Boo.
The number, Grayson, for NC State is 6.5. Now, you already kind of tipped your hand to this one where you think that's probably the right over-under.
Yeah, I mean, it's spot on. But I will say about their schedule, it's not that tough of a schedule. I think the hardest 2 games are very clearly on the road at Notre Dame and on the road at Miami. The other 10, they're winnable. I mean, there's a world where NC State, through the first 6 games, they can be 6-0. They can also be 3-3. Possibly worse than 3-3. Like, for example, last 2 years consecutively, we have looked awful against Duke. That game is probably looking a little terrifying to most NC State fans right now. I do think 6.5 is accurate. I think a lot of the optimism around the offense would lead you to lean a little more closer on the over. I think the offensive talent, I've kind of compared it to like old school Big 12 games. I think NC State's going to get in a lot of shootouts this year. There might be defense optional some weeks. They're looking to score 45 plus. I wouldn't hate that. I think that'd be a blast because we never get that at NC State. But if you do see that, I think we have the talent to go over. In fact, we think we have the best tight end in the country in Justin Jolie. If you utilize him as such, you might go over. We'll see.
Yeah, I think the 9.5 for Miami is about right. You know, the homer in me, you know, I probably my official pick for the season will be 10 wins, but I'm not going to give betting advice on that one either way. You know, they won 10 games last year. Cam Ward is not back. I do have some faith in Carson Beck, though. I think the defense will be better this year, much better than it was last year, but the schedule is also tougher. Like, that's what makes it hard to predict Miami's regular season wins because, okay, their biggest non-conference game last year was Florida, who they have on the schedule again, and Florida will be looking for revenge after Miami blew them out last year. And, they open up the season against Notre Dame. It's at home, but obviously it will not be an easy game by any stretch. And I think the conference schedule is a little bit tougher. They still don't have Clemson on the regular season schedule, which is good, but they do have SMU on the road, which will be tricky, and Louisville at home, which will be very difficult, and Florida State, which is a rivalry game. And like Brian said, even if Miami should be better than Florida State, it's in Tallahassee, could be unpredictable. So, you know, I guess if you're going to be really pragmatic about it, you might go under 9.5. But I think Miami can win 10 games. It's about navigating a really tougher than usual schedule this year. But when we come back, there's got to be at least a few coaches on the hot seat in the conference. Who's at the top of that list? You want to keep it locked right here. We got the squad. We're predicting the ACC season right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. My friends, this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason is already heating up, and college football is not far behind. Whether you've got your eye on big game quarterbacks or breakout running backs, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in the game. Prize Picks is simple to play. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. And if you get your picks right, you can cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. I have been using Prize Picks since 2021. I love, it's basically, it combines my love for daily fantasy with parlays. I have so much fun doing this, guys. I love how simple it is. I can get my lineup in before my morning coffee finishes brewing. The flex play option is a total game changer. Even when one of your picks misses, you can still double your money. Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks, run your game. Thank you for making the ACC squad your first listen and your first watch. All right, I got to ask a couple awkward questions here. Let me start with Brian Smith of Locked On Seminoles. How warm is the seat for Mike Norvell right now?
Actually, I don't think it's very warm because they don't want to pay the buyout. It's warm for the boosters wanting him out until they see what they got to sign the check for. So unless they go 3-9 or something, I just don't see it. He still owed $50 million or something like that after this year. I just don't think it's going to happen, which this is the problem around college football. Florida State is not alone in this. There are some other programs where it's fans don't want to hear it, but even if they don't even come close to meeting expectations, who's writing the check? So while
and they're saving up some money for that ACC buyout in a few years too.
Well, that's part of it. Like they just had the renovations on the stadiums, like $200 million with all the stuff going on. You got the ACC thing, and then Norvell's contract's huge, and you just hired a bunch of new coaches. I mean, maybe Isaac Shade will help them out with a loan or something, but I'm not holding my breath on that.
Oh, you're muted, Isaac.
I said only if that Duke bet hits.
Well, that could be. That's an easy one. That's an easy one.
So someone who does appear on like these, hot seat lists preseason is Dave Doran of NC State, who Grayson has been there for a very, very long time. So is this a season where, the boosters start to get a little impatient if they don't have a bounce back year?
I believe that it is. I've been calling this the fork in the road year. I think if you're looking at another 6-6 year, I would tend to believe you're going to see a change. However, I'm not sure if he'll be fired because the buyout is, I think it's over like 15 mils still. He's currently extended out until 2029, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a little steep. I actually believe that he may retire if things do not go all that well in Raleigh. We'll see. That's just a gut feeling, just my opinion, going off of a hunch here. I think if you hear some of the things he was saying at ACC kickoff, and there's a lot more I could tell the rest of y'all later on, but that's my gut feeling. I think if things go south in Raleigh, I think there will be a coaching change.
Oh, now, Isaac, I wouldn't use the term hot seat with Bill Belichick, but it's such a unique situation, with him being in his 70s, and everyone speculates he really wants to be in the NFL. So I like. What are your thoughts on like how long he's going to be in Chapel Hill?
That's a great question. I mean, he's the oldest coach in all of Division I, right? Like that's what we're looking at. I when I think about this, I've thought about it a lot similar to Dion in his first year at Colorado, right? There was all that hype. Funny enough, their first game was TCU, who Carolina's first game is against. They won that game, but everyone is waiting around. I can hear Kenton Gibbs somewhere off in the distance, just licking his chops, waiting for Carolina to start racking up some L's, so that everyone can dump on it. And I get it. I would too. Right. And so I think that's the thing is the highs are going to be really high and everyone's going to circle around, and the lows are going to be really low and everyone's going to circle around like vultures. And that's just the deal when you go make a hire like this. And so I think that's a big part of it. There's been a lot of speculation about Coach Belichick ultimately leaving things to his son, Steve, who came over from Washington. He's the DC this year. That provision didn't get its way into the contract. It was all rumor and hearsay. But I think that's a big equation. I mean, he seems to be all in, right? There's all the will he jet back off to the NFL? There's been no signs that he intends or wants to do that. And so it's just same with the team's capability this year. Dono, your guess is truly as good as mine.
All right, so let me ask this question, and anybody who wants to jump in and take this, go ahead and take it, because I don't think any of the coaches we've named already are on the hottest of seats, but who do you guys expect to be the first guy fired or the guy most likely to not make it through the season?
He's in Blacksburg, Virginia.
Yep.
Bingo. Brent Pry.
Anybody disagree with that?
I mean, last year, like that was supposed to be the year that he put Blacksburg, Virginia back on the college football map. And I'm still trying to figure out what the hell happened. Like how banged up was Kyron Drones throughout the season? Like what happened between 2023 and 2024 for him? Like that team was way too talented to go 6-7 last year.
Does Virginia care enough to fire Tony Elliott at some point soon? Or does it matter in Charlottesville?
Well,
that's
here's the thing. Don't laugh. I don't know how good they are, but at least in the trenches, something that I follow closely on the Portal podcast, they've got a ton of experience on both sides in the trenches. If they don't win something this year, then it's never going to happen. Is Chandler Morris their quarter? Like, have they what? Okay. At least he's an experienced quarterback. I don't think he's great by any means. But if they can't win this year, go to a bowl, maybe I think they're over under 6.5, if I remember, then I think Isaac's got a point.
Justin Wilcox at Cal I know, we got the whole East Coast bias thing going on this panel, but it's definitely a put up or shut up year for him with a lot of transfer movement, a lot of players out, a lot of players in. He's got Brian Harsin as his offensive coordinator, who's very volatile. So I don't know what. And that offense was not very good, although they got great quarterbacking from Fernando Mendoza, who's now at Indiana. The defense is usually the bread and butter for that team. So I don't know what to expect from the Golden Bears.
Who the heck is their quarterback? I was going to bring up Mendoza. That's a great point, Don.
Oh, they named, so they're going with a true freshman.
I can't pronounce
the kid from Hawaii. Yeah.
Hold on, I was practicing this name all week. Jaron Kiave Sangapolatele is their quarterback. It's a true freshman. So
that's good.
Unreal, Dono. Unreal. This is why
your word for
out. I've got a similar question. Let's stay out on the West Coast to what I asked about in Charlottesville. Like, is Stanford ever going to go back to like David Shaw era? Man, I just remember going in and the ground and pound, and it's like, good grief, I don't want to go play there. But is that going to happen again? And similarly, do they care enough to fire a head coach?
Well, the funny thing is, like, they have the weird. I mean, if you think the Bill Belichick thing is weird,
Troy Taylor weird too. Yeah,
Stanford has Frank Reich as a known interim just for 1 year. Like, because you mentioned the Troy Taylor thing. He was fired in March when they had a scandal there. And, March is a terrible time to find a new head coach. So they called in Frank Reich to do a favor for Andrew Luck to step in for a year. But he's telling everyone, like, I'm not going to stay here for more than a year. Like, I'm gonna hang around till you find the permanent head coach. So, like, how do in the meantime, like, how do you recruit when everyone knows Reich is just a Band-Aid? So their over-under is 3.5 wins, by the way, Stanford. So, but they can't fire a guy who's not going to be there after this year anyway.
The problem with Stanford is I still don't think they're taking early enrollees. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. And they just don't pay guys like the NIL. You can't do both of those things with their ridiculous academic standards and expect to be good in college football. They could be the bottom dweller of the ACC for the rest of my life. I mean, you just can't win that way.
And they are expected to be the bottom dweller at 3.5 wins on FanDuel. Cal at 5.5 wins. All right, so what we learned today is Clemson more than likely winning the ACC championship, and according to 4/6 of the panel, Louisville is going to face them in that championship game. Huge thank you and shout out to everybody for making us your first listen and your first watch. Make sure you subscribe to all the channels. Locked On Boston College with AJ, Locked On Wolfpack with Grayson Boone and Kenton Gibbs, Locked On Blue Devils with JJ Jackson, Locked On Tar Heels with Isaac Shade, Locked On Seminoles with Brian Smith, and all the other ACC channels, even if they were not represented here today. Everyone have a great season, and we'll talk to you next time on another episode of The Squad right here on the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.